All right. Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and we're doing a live video today talking about cherry picking facts on Index Universal Life. I spent a little time last week going through and doing some responses to comments. For those of you who don't know, I for the past 2 months have been kind of on the road working on a couple projects. Spent about a month in the Dominican Republic, a couple of weeks in Colombia. Went and played the World Series of Poker main event. Did a bunch of things. Back at it now. I've spent a lot of time in that period having conversations with agents, conversations with clients, and just really having a good opportunity to go a bit more introspective than normal. And, I guess that's saying a lot for me because I spend a lot of time thinking a lot about why I do what I do. And what's interesting about right now is I'm kind of coming out of this trip and realizing how much of a problem the world of Index Universal Life insurance is, and the potential negative ripple effect that's going to have on the rest of the industry. And when I have been engaging in these comments with people and these conversations with people, it's really got me to kind of think about this from the perspective of really feeling like I have to double down on everything at this point in time. And so, I get a lot of people that ask me, why do you create so much anti-IUL content? And the answer is because, unfortunately, I feel like nobody else is going to do it. I don't know if it's because nobody else has the guts to do it, to stick their neck out on the chopping block. Nobody wants to be confrontational about it. No, everybody wants to just get along. I don't know what the reasoning is behind all this, but at the end of the day, for me, I believe so much in what we do on the whole life insurance side, and I believe that message gets bastardized by the IUL side of the world. They try to cherry pick all the good things of whole life and then take credit for it on the IUL side and not talk about the negative downsides of IUL. And it's a really misleading, misrepresented product. And so the purpose of this video is one of the comments that I saw that came through almost a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. I was playing in the World Series of Poker while it came through, and I didn't have the chance to respond immediately. And so it just kind of slipped through the cracks, and then he finally wrote back crickets ... after like 9 days of me not responding. And with that, I was just like, all right, like this guy obviously wants a response. And so I'm gonna give a response. And I just figured, rather than taking the time to write up this big write-up and like give this big response, it would be much more impactful to come on here, talk about it live, because I think it could be much more impactful done over video, and then also open it up to kind of a Q&A session and make it an educational opportunity for people to really get to understand kind of why I do what I do, why I cherry pick the ideas, so to speak, and cherry pick the topics that I talk about, if that's what he wants to say. It's not cherry picking. It's really focusing on the parts that matter. That's really what it comes down to. And so let's just get into it. This is going to be fun stuff. So what I want to do is actually let me get this set up here. I got to set one thing up. I should have had this done before. I thought I had it ready, but I didn't. So I apologize. So give me 1 second while I get this squared away. And so what I want to do is I'm going to bring this over, and let's do this. Okay. And I will get into this comment. So I got that there. All right, here we go. So you can see this comment here. And this is the comment right here. So you can see this video is the video that the comment was made on. It was on the video, the 4 lies that life insurance agents, life agents use to sell Index Universal Life. Now this video has, I think it got ranked pretty well. If you search for Index Universal Life on the YouTube algorithm, search engine optimization stuff, it got ranked really well. And so it's getting a lot of views, which is fantastic. I love that. But I just want to go through this line of questioning and this line of comments, and then respond to this person very, very point blankly. And if anybody has comments and questions, If anybody finds value in this, please just let me know in the comments, because I'm going through this and I'm doing the best I can. I'll do my best to kind of check down for comments every now and then, but I've got like 3 monitors I'm checking out right now and trying to do this all at the same time. I don't have anybody here helping me produce this. I'm just doing this all on my own. So here's the comment. Dude, I'm a whole life all the way agent, but you literally cherry pick so many points and give the most biased reviews. So first of all, if he was a whole life all the way agent, he would believe that IUL is a very misrepresented product. So I would argue he's not a whole life agent all the way, because he is arguing against my perspective, which, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's just keep going. You were with a trash company and project that on every other company's product. The truth is, NLG just sucks, and whole life and IULs are 2 different tools, better for different reasons. So, okay, so there you go. You're not a whole life all the way agent. You are I think that both products have each have their use case kind of agent. And there's a big difference between a whole life all the way agent and each product has its own use case. And based on this statement, you're telling me you have, a use for each of them, and I would argue that I'm going to blow up your use for whatever you think they're good for here in this, and I do that regularly in my videos. So now I responded fairly at that point in time. I said, cherry pick, ? Please explain what I cherry pick. I love it when people come on here and make vague comments like this with no basis of defending their comment. What exactly did I cherry pick? All right, so this is what I was going for. I was trying to get them to engage and get a response. So you can see I expanded this comment. It gets pretty good. So Life 180, the first one is exactly what I said. You were with a garbage company and project that company's flaws on every IUL company when there are a select few out there that don't operate like that. I will even add in your defense that 90% of IULs in the market are garbage for any purpose, especially cash accumulation, but these things don't apply across the board, and that's the problem. I would argue these things absolutely do apply across the board, and that is the problem. And so I don't project this, and I'm going to answer this before I continue. I don't project my perspective so much because of my time at National Life Group. Do I use that as a basis of reasoning? Absolutely, because that was where I kind of came to my conclusions. So yeah, absolutely, that comes in. That's part of my background. That's part of my history. That's part of why I developed the reasoning and thinking that I have. But I have plenty of other videos that talk about companies like Symetra, Pacific Life, National Life Group, F&G. I've done videos on Nationwide. I've done videos on Allianz, Pro Plus Advantage. So like I've done videos on all these things doing very, very in-depth illustration breakdowns, and these are all the leaders in the industry. Like if you combine Nationwide, National Life Group, Allianz, Pac Life, and Symetra, those 5 companies, I bet you it's 90% of all IUL sales across the board. So I've really focused on, maybe not 90, maybe 80, but like I've really focused on trying to give a good assessment, and not just giving my opinion, but going through each illustration. If you want to see it, I've got IUL, Index Universal Life training playlist, where you can find all those videos on the page, right, on my channel page, and it's there. And so like I would argue that it's not biased at all. I'm trying to keep it unbiased, if anything, and kind of go from there. But that's just what he says. So we're going to keep going here. Okay, so it doesn't apply across the board, and that's the problem. That's what he says. The problem is someone who doesn't have the education and or experience will think so. So he's saying the problem is people that doesn't have the education will believe what I have to say, but they should believe what I have to say because it's the truth. You always say the only guarantee in an IUL illustration is that it won't perform as shown, clearly implying it's guaranteed to perform worse, while simultaneously purposely leaving out the fact that there is the same potential for it to outperform the illustration, like many have. So this is like almost comical to me that he's making this statement. I created the Index Universal Life Challenge, the IUL Challenge, exactly for that reason. because I'm so tired of hearing people like him talk about this and say, I'm not giving people the opportunity to show that it can outperform. Do I think an IUL has the opportunity to outperform the illustrated rate? I know technically it's possible, and I've stated this plenty of times. However, 99% of the time, they're not going to. And so for somebody to be putting their money into a financial vehicle that has a 99% chance of underperforming the way that it's sold, to me, that's just not good business. It's not, it's with a product that's sold on upside potential and downside protection. We just came through the greatest bull run of all time. You would think that the policies would be able to capture, quote unquote, some of that upside potential in the greatest bull run of all time. If they didn't outperform it then, what are they going to do now when the market's not doing very well, right? And I've got a video that comes out tomorrow, because this is live right now. We're talking live. I actually just scheduled a video for tomorrow that's going to be talking a lot about this. That's going to go really into detail on why I believe these IULs are not going to perform well over the next period of time. So I think, that's, I don't know. I think that's really important to understand. So let me see here. I want to go back to, I'm going to read what he's saying here one more time, just so clear, implying it's guaranteed to perform worse. Oh yeah. So here's the deal. For me, I look at this and I go, all right, well, I think it's going to perform worse. Historically, it's performed worse. IULs are created in 1997. Every single year, they've gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Regulators have had to step in, change regulations, create Regulation AG 49, update it to Regulation AG 49A, and now in 2023, update it to Regulation AG 49B. And so when we look at the facts and we look at what's happening and what has happened historically with IUL, we look at the fact that they didn't even meet illustrated performance in the greatest bull run of all time. And yes, technically speaking, is there on paper technically an ability potentially for an IUL to outperform the illustrated rate? Sure. And I found a flying unicorn the other day. Is it possible? Yeah, sure. Anything is possible. Is it likely? I don't deal in possibilities when I'm talking about people's money. I don't deal in potentiality when we talk about setting up financial strategies to help you get to your goals, right? When we talk about the fact that that most of these policies are going to underperform, and when I'm going to be really liberal here, I said 99% are going to underperform. Let's just say it's 80%. Let's say it's 70% of properly designed policies, quote unquote, properly designed IUL policies. Let's say that 70% underperform. Is that anything you want to put your money into? The answer is, in my opinion, an unequivocal no. It's not something I could get behind. The problem is, they're sold as being something that they're not. They're sold as these great, safe vehicles with upside potential, downside protection. You can't lose due to market risk, but the bottom line is you can lose money in the policies, and that is the problem. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to continue reading, and let's keep going. All right. So that was the first cherry-picked, quote-unquote, thing that I do, apparently. And so let's just go to this section. Another cherry-picked biased point you always make is in regards to the lack of guarantees in an IUL, whether it being due to the index in the market or the responsibility of the policy owner. You talk about it like it's a guarantee that all IULs are doomed to perform terribly no matter what because of the performance risk factor from being indexed, when the reality is that's really just your opinion on whether someone should take that risk in this category. Stocks, index funds, I'm gonna just get through this and then I'll respond. Stocks, index funds, IRAs, which my office also offers and manages, have that same risk of not performing times 1,000. That is just a total fallacy. They don't have 1,000 times more risk. I'll get into that. That doesn't mean they are bad, nor does it mean everybody should get a CD instead. Any product in the entire financial industry that has risk of not performing great also has risk of performing better, and you always brush over the upside potential. It's clearly biased towards your opinion on risk in IULs, which is again totally distorted from being behind the scenes of NLG, a dog blank company run by scumbags. Okay, so, all right, let me break this down a little bit. This is hilarious to me. All right, so I'm gonna pull this up again because I want to be able to see this. I'm gonna read it. I got my monitor up here. So let me go through. I'm not gonna read it again, but I'm gonna just kind of scan it and respond in order of everything he's saying. So what he's saying is that I'm saying IULs are doomed no matter what, and I focus on the guarantees of whole life, and I say that IULs are doomed and they're terrible products because of the fact that they're participating in the index, when in reality he's saying it's just my opinion. He's saying you're sharing your opinion, and you're stating it as fact, but all investments have risk. And he's saying, I work for a company that manages IRAs, index funds, these sorts of things, and they have risk times 1,000. I would argue that you don't have risk times 1,000. Actually, the problem with IUL is that it injects more risk than people even are aware of. And the bottom line is it's not that much safer than traditional investments when people think it is. Once again, the problem is that the product, you're not taking on risk during the accumulation years, you're taking on risk during the distribution years. Because when you accumulate, yeah, there's risk involved. And to some extent, I don't really have a problem with the risk if you plan on just letting the money sit there. I would argue that it's not going to perform well. And that's what the IUL challenge is all about. So and to that point, what he's saying is they're not bad. He's telling me that the only reason that the policies didn't perform is because I work for a dog crap company like NLG. But he's saying that I brush over the upside potential. Listen, I haven't come to any of these conclusions whimsically. I haven't come to them from a halfway perspective. I've spent a lot of time, way more time on this than the guy making this comment. I can guarantee that. And what I've come to the conclusion of is IULs across the board, typically speaking, 99% of the time do not meet illustrated values, and they're going to underperform, if not way underperform, because of the other risks involved in them. The bottom line is that's why I created, once again, the IUL challenge. If people can win the IUL challenge, I will shut my mouth. Now, I haven't had one person win the IUL challenge. I would need a lot of people to come forward at this point in time, because if you think about it, there's hundreds of thousands of policies that are sold out there. Hundreds of thousands. Think about this. Out of the hundreds of thousands of IUL policies that have been sold in the past decade, I haven't had one person be able to come through and win the IUL challenge. Why is that the case? I get a lot of new people, a lot of people that have been in the business 1, 2, 3 to 5 years, and they say, oh, Chris, you're wrong. You haven't been in the business long enough to know that I'm wrong. And they say, well, the people that are training me have been telling me that they've been doing this a long time and it works. Okay, well then get them to step forward and win the challenge. If they can't, well then, to me, it's one of those things you got to kind of like put up or shut up kind of thing, right? Like that's my perspective on this. It's like put up or shut up, and like people just are not, I don't know. I really don't care about your opinion about why I'm doing this. I'm just focusing on facts, and I'm trying to give people the opportunity to step forward in a factual basis and to prove your case, right? Like show me. I'll even give you $2,000. That's the thing. I put it forward. If you can win the IUL challenge, I'll give you $2,000. Like, and nobody's been able to do it. And if these things had the upside potential, once again, greatest bull run, they would have done it. And so this is not just my opinion. I'm not trying to be biased. I'm simply stating facts. What you're doing is just as bad as an IUL agent purposely omitting the risks to a potential client. No, it's not. Once again, if this guy making the comment is so fired up about this, just submit and win the IUL challenge, right? Like that's like, to me, that's pretty straightforward. Like it shouldn't be that hard. Just win the IUL challenge. So what I'm doing is just as bad as an IUL agent purposely omitting the risk to the potential client. You're just the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay. In all of your videos, he says all, capitalized, it's very obvious to someone educated on the topic that your personal opinion is subtly injected into things that you make people believe are the facts when it's not, and that is dangerous. Once again, it is the facts. I think I'm not trying to give my opinion on this. I give the facts on how money works, how money flows through an IUL, where the risks are, and then I state my opinion, and I don't state it as a fact. I state my opinion is IULs will not perform. And then I say, all right, if I'm wrong, I'm gonna give all of you IUL agents a chance to prove me wrong. And I'm even gonna pay you to prove me wrong with the IUL challenge. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to get me to shut my mouth, and I'm going to get you an opportunity to come on and debate me, to have a conversation, but none of you do it. But you always make these comments and then you run and hide, right? Like, and so to me, like it's just cowardice in so many ways. I don't understand, that perspective. I don't understand that way of living and that way of like engaging in situations. If you got an opinion, step up, like show me. Like I don't care about your opinion on whether I'm right or wrong. I care about like seeing if you've done better. My guess is the person who wrote this comment has been doing this for 3 to 4 years and they are emotionally charged and they have these opinions. That's my guess. If you have a real opinion and you have real facts and you've been doing this business long enough and you can back it up, well then step forward and submit to the IUL challenge. Submit this stuff, like prove to the world that you've actually done this successfully. Prove to the world that you have policies, not just one, by the way. I'm gonna call out the elephant in the room here. A lot of people came to me and they said, oh, Doug Andrew had one policy that he showed that was that would have won the IUL challenge. He says, this is great. Submit it. Submit the IUL challenge. Get Doug to engage with me on a one-to-one basis and let's do a video having a conversation about this, because that is the whole purpose I did for the IUL challenge. Not to say that people couldn't win it, but to say that we need to take this conversation to the next level, because this guy's right. Is it possible that an IUL could outperform? Technically speaking, yes, it's possible. If you had the right assumptions at the beginning and everything was in line and the market did well, it is possible. And that said, apparently Doug put out a video where it would have won the challenge. The IUL policy performed better than it was illustrated, and that is what it is. That's fine. From that perspective, like if he won that one time, I would have paid him. He would come on, we'd have a conversation, and let's do it. I'm all about that. But the purpose I did this for was exactly because I wanted to start that conversation with people like Doug, to be able to get this information out there. Because at the end of the day, I don't care about that one that worked. I care about the thousands of other policies that he has written that I'm pretty sure didn't work, right? That's the problem. To be able to take a marketing piece like that and say, oh, one video, one policy that did work when thousands of policies have been sold that haven't worked. Once again, I've never looked inside his business. I've never seen any of this before. I've never had a conversation with Doug. I've never gotten into that world. So fully transparently, I am speculating on his book of business, but I am also coming from the perspective that I've talked to a lot of people that have worked with him, a lot of clients, a lot of problems, and a lot of complaints from people that said they had policies that did not go well with him, and that we had to like kind of help bail out and fix their problem, right? Because I run into this all the time. If you saw the emails and the problems that I see people deal with every single day with IULs, your head would explode, and you'd understand the passion in which I operate in this topic, right? Like that's a big thing. All right, what do we got here? I've been on a call with Chris and the regional VP of an IUL company, and all the regional VP did was get mad and said he doesn't have to prove anything to us. And that was the last straw for me. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what happened. And then this is something that happens to me all the time. Thanks, Chris, for going against the grain and teaching the truth about it. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, Seb. Appreciate it, man. Guys, if you're not following Sebastian, I want to say this right now. I've had him on the channel here a couple times. Sebastian is an amazing, amazing, amazing man. He runs an amazing company that helps people get lending for their businesses and helps you manage your credit, build your business credit, all that stuff. We've worked a lot together. He's phenomenal. If you have a business, you're looking to fix your personal credit or business credit and get loans, reach out to Sebastian. He's a phenomenal guy. Just in general, but in that space, he's a rock star. So reach out to him, connect with him, follow him. He's got a great YouTube channel as well that's growing and it's phenomenal. So go check him out. He's fantastic. So all right, let's keep this going. Oh, I hit the wrong button. There we go. Too many buttons to hit here. Let's keep. Oh my goodness. There we go. All right, let's keep going. So apparently he's saying what I'm doing is dangerous, but I believe what I'm doing is absolutely necessary. I see what you're trying to do, and if executed properly, it would be a very noble act. But as you soil that by lying over dramatizing and cherry picking, I hate scummy IUL agents just as much as the next guy, if not more, but lying to people in opposite direction isn't the way to combat that, my man. I'm not lying to people. And so my guess is, once again, this is a guy who is trying to be the guy that's like, oh, IUL works in some situations and whole life works in other situations, and he wants to have the best of both worlds, and it's certainly easier to sell that way. It's easier to make money that way. And you know, I don't know who this person is. I don't know what their objectives are. I don't know what their means are. So I'm not gonna speculate as to what their real goals are or how they run their business. But, you know, everything he's saying here, I think I've answered and responded to kind of those comments already. And yet another, and this is the final part, I think. And yet another, in regards to infinite banking, no doubt is whole life better for that. But if you are 10 or more years into a properly structured, properly managed IUL, there comes a threshold that if it performed well, it's a big ifs in this. And with infinite banking, there can be no ifs in the policy. That is the point here. So to say that IUL, I mean, he's saying for infinite banking, it could potentially be better. Infinite banking can have no ifs in the policy. So the fact that he's even doing this and making the comment in the way that he is tells me he doesn't even understand what infinite banking is. I guarantee you, this person, I guess it might be a woman, but this person literally is coming from the perspective on infinite banking, thinking that it's just about positive arbitrage, that's all the conversation is about. Otherwise, this wouldn't be written. It'd be specifically better to use an IUL for that now that the fees are gone. The fees are never gone in an IUL, like never gone. There's never a time when fees are gone in IUL. Okay, let's actually talk about that for a second. That is one of the parts about IUL that I don't like, is that you can never truly pay up an IUL. If you have an IUL and you can show vanishing premiums in an IUL on an illustration, but you can never actually pay up the IUL. Every single year you have annual renewable term. There are always going to be charges and costs inside of that policy. So the goal is, what they say to do is have option B, increasing death benefits, so you can put more money into it early. And then once you stop funding the policy, you reduce that and you change the death benefit to option A, which is a level death benefit. That is their idea. And so the idea there is, as the cash value accumulates and the level death benefit is there, it eats into, it adds up and shrinks the gap between the death benefit and the cash value, because the gap between the cash value and the death benefit is what's called the net amount at risk, and that's the amount of insurance that you're paying for, okay? So the idea is you do that, but here's the problem. When you go to level and then you start taking income, you're never shrinking that gap. And on the illustrations, it shows 50 basis points of positive arbitrage. But the problem is, if you take loans, and I did this on the video that's coming out tomorrow, you can check it out. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. I love this. All right. So here's the deal. If you take loans, and let's say you're 70 years old, or no, let's do this. Let's say you're, I'm just gonna move this to the side. Let's say you are 65 years old, and you have $1 million in cash value, net cash value. So here's the deal. A lot of these illustrations of companies will show that you're doing like 8% to 10% of income annually off of this $1 million. So in this situation, it'd be between 80K and 100K of annual income through policy loans. Okay, that's the idea of an IUL, how they would do this. Which, by the way, think about this. If you look at a comparison from an IUL to an indexed annuity, which an annuity is completely designed it's a vehicle that's optimized for income. That is the purpose of an annuity. You're not going to be able to get this 8 to 10%. And that doesn't even include the charges and the fees and all this stuff. The only reason you're able to do this is because of the 50 basis points of arbitrage shown on the illustration. If you eliminate this, and the reality is it doesn't work that way, you're never going to have 50 basis points of arbitrage every single year, then all of a sudden this 8 to 10% puts you at complete risk. But the problem is these IUL agents are assuming that is it. I would argue if you're taking more than 3 to 4% of your income out of an IUL, you are running a massive risk. And here's why, because here's the deal. At 65, let's go to 75 now. We've taken $100,000 a year of income. So what does that mean? We're paying, let's call it 4%. I'm gonna do a really low loan rate, 4% loan rate, okay? At $1 million of income, 100,000 a year. So let's just say we have a 1.2 million-ish loan due. Now we're gonna have a cash value in here. So the net cash value, we'll have a $1.2 million loan, and we'll probably have like a 400,000 net cash value left. That's after all the loans, because remember, in a IUL policy, you have accumulated value, you have net cash value, and then you have the death benefit, okay? So the accumulated value is the total money that you have accumulated, and then the net cash value is the accumulated minus loan amount, and then the death benefit is going to be whatever the death benefit is, and then the net amount at risk, which is not on the illustration, will be the death benefit minus the net cash value, and that is what will determine what your insurance charges are, your insurance costs are. Anyway, so I'll check on the comments. I know we got a couple in the process here. So here's the deal. At the end of the day, when we get through this process, we got about, by 75, we'll have about $400,000 of net cash value, but we're gonna have a loan of 1.2 million. And if at 4%, a loan of 1.2 million, we're looking at like $48,000, $48,000 of loan expense. On a negative year or a flat year, that comes out of this $400,000. So that's basically the equivalent of a 10% loss, even on a flat year while you're in retirement. And that's why in retirement, these things blow up. My problem with IULs is that people, like, you don't realize the problem until it's too late. You know, if you start leveraging this money, there's basically no getting out of it. Now, the good news is most of these companies have overloan protection riders. If that happens, you know, when you're 75, then you're not going to have a tax consequence. But for most of the companies, if this happens and you have a policy lapse or anything happens where you run out of cash value, you either have to make that premium payment or it becomes a taxable event if you're before 75, and that could be really, really detrimental to people. So, all right, what do we got here? We got somebody making a comment, not being that guy, it's just true. I gladly go on a live and debate this. I mean, I'm happy. I want to debate somebody that actually has a history. I'd have to know who you are and what your background is. I'm not going to just give you a platform for like, but if you have a background and you can actually show me your book of business and I think you're a worthy opponent, I'm happy to hop on, but you got to prove it to me, because I'm not going to just give you a platform to sound off and have nothing. But I'm absolutely, for the right person, with the right background and with the right book of business that can prove to me that you are somebody who's actually done something significant in this business, I'm happy to do so. Again, you're intertwining your opinion with the facts. I very much, I'm not intertwining my opinion with facts on infinite banking. All right, let's go back to this and read. This is gonna be fun. All right, so another, in regards to infinite banking, we're gonna do this again, just so I can prove it's not my opinion. In regards to infinite banking, no doubt whole life is better for you, but 10 years or more, if it's properly structured, properly managed IUL, there comes a threshold that if it performed well, it would be significantly better to use an IUL for that now that the fees are gone. So you missed a couple things. Fees are never gone. First of all, you can never pay up an IUL. So you can never reduce that risk. With a whole life policy, you can completely pay it up. And there are guarantees that back everything up. So that's where the infinite banking concept comes from. In the infinite banking, go read the book, Becoming Your Own Banker. This is not my opinion. This is a fact. Now you can try to come up with a different marketing term or a different concept that you sell as infinite banking 2.0 for different people. You know, you could do whatever you want, but the bottom line is when it comes to traditional and pure infinite banking, There can be no risk, there can be no variables in the policy. And that is the problem with IUL. It's not my opinion. I'm not intertwining facts. That is the facts as written by Nelson Nash in the book. And that is just the way it is. Like, so I find that very interesting. The fact that you're telling me I'm intertwining facts actually gives me a little concern about like where your head's at with this whole conversation, honestly. All right, so FG Path Setter has an overload protection rider. FG, by the way, if FG is the company that you're utilizing as a good example for IULs, I don't worry, I'll make some videos on FG. They are a trash company on IULs. They're good with annuities. Their index annuities can be really good. Their IULs are not so good. And I'll do some videos on that as well. If anybody has an FG annuity that they want me to do an evaluation on for the IUL, just send it to me, Chris at Life180. I'll be happy to do an evaluation. I just got to go through my emails and find an FG IUL to break down and go through the illustration line by line and explain exactly where all the risks are in it and how it's oversold and misrepresented. But it also has a 1.25% floor on their Barclays strategy. All right, so let's talk about that. That's another thing. The Barclays strategy. So if you understand how these IUL companies participate in different indexes and markets, the thing is they, well, here, I'll just write this out. I gotta go here. There we go. So if you understand how they do this, this is one of the things that I talk about. Once again, he's going to say this is my opinion. This is just fact. And this is one of the reasons that I believe what I believe and do what I do. And so here's the deal. Back when I joined in 2009 in the IUL space, there were 9 companies selling IUL. In 2014, there were about 15 companies. In 2023, there are 74 companies, okay? And that's the last I looked. Some are stopping, some are adding, but let's just say 70, just to keep it ballpark, right? So if this is the case, these are the facts. These are facts about what's going on. If you understand how IULs work, and I've done this on a lot of videos, so I'm not gonna go into great detail, but you pay premium, it goes into the general fund, they create an options budget, they buy call options. That's what happens. All IULs is a UL product with an option strategy attached to it, okay? So here's the problem. Back then, IULs have created their own problem because the only thing that happens is you have the cap rates, you have the par rates, and you have spread charges depending on if it's a no cap index or whatever. Spread charges come into play, participation rates come into play. If it is a capped index, then obviously cap and potentially par rates come into play. So when you look at this though, these 3 areas here are determined by the options budget and cost of options. These determine the rates at the cap rate, the par rate, and the spread charge. These 2 things determine these. So what happened was, as IUL companies or as insurance companies saw the IUL industry as this booming profit center that they had the ability to take advantage of, what they did was they said, oh, we're going to flood into this market. And so that's where it went from 9 to 15 to now 70 plus companies. And so what's happened now is we've had billions, and when I'm saying billions, I mean billions and billions of dollars that are flooding in. My ego is ridiculous. I'm okay, if you say so. If you say so, man. But you have billions and billions of dollars going into these options from life insurance companies. Back here, it was millions and millions, and now it got more. And now we're talking about more money, selling more policies from more companies. And if you understand anything about options, you understand that these life insurance companies are creating their own problems because it's a supply and demand. There's not an unlimited supply. So the cost of these options goes up. The more demand there is, the more expensive the options become. And so that's where everything used to be the S&P 500 pretty much. But now at the end of the day, what's happening is these companies are creating proprietary indexes. And those proprietary indexes are the proprietary indexes are designed, and these companies will partner and they'll have a proprietary index that was designed or created specifically for a company for the annuity or for the index universal life policy. And the goal was just to reduce the cost of options. But the problem when you do that is that it's not a pure index. And what they do is they do these look backs and they talk about cherry picking. They cherry pick the best investments to be able to illustrate and make the index look like it's going to perform really well. But the problem is that anybody that's ever read an investment prospectus from any kind of mutual fund or investment, they say past performance is not indicative of future results. Yet they do this, and they basically were able to cherry pick it and then back test it just to illustrate a certain rate. And that doesn't mean it's going to be that way moving forward. Plus, typically those proprietary indexes come with extra fees and charges, and the way that they're designed. Every company's a little bit differently, so I don't want to like speak out of line. But that's one of the things that I do is every company that has a proprietary index, I will go into the illustration, I will learn, I will read, I will research the indexes, go online. You can find all this information online and figure out how it all works. You just got to take the time to do the deep dive, do your due diligence, and go from there. So Patrick, I'm going to assume that this Patrick Teschke guy is the dude. Is the dude who made the comment, which is great. I'm glad that you're here. You say my ego is ridiculous. I don't think my ego. If you knew me, man, you would know my ego isn't ridiculous. I'm just very guarded about my brand. And the bottom line is, I don't know you. You're just a dude that made a comment on a YouTube video. You could be amazing. For all I know, you could be a huge producer and doing a lot of things for a lot of people. And if that's the case, just show it to me, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. But if you've been in the business for a couple of years and haven't done anything, well, then I'm sorry, I'm not going to debate you live. It's just your opinion. So anyway, that is that. So Philip Bingo said, is there an industry data on the lapse rates of IUL? So I haven't seen actual data of lapse rates. There's a couple different resources out there. One of the places that I would go if I were you, because this guy has access to more information because he's tied in with the companies and the carriers and does a lot of work, is Bobby Samuelson. I've interviewed him on the channel several times. I love having him on. He's probably my favorite interview. But he runs a blog called lifeproductreview.com. I'm actually going to type it in here. That way you can have it. Lifeproductreview.com. I get nothing for that. It's just something I believe in. I think everybody should go there. It is $99 a month, I think, or $1,000 a year. But I think anybody that is a life insurance agent that's doing this professionally, and you're looking to really understand this stuff to serve people, talk about an unbiased opinion. He has nothing to gain from this. If anything, him having a negative opinion about IUL hurts his business because he gets paid by the companies to design these products, and he is one of the top product minds in the business, and he gives the best breakdowns. So if you don't believe me and you think I've got a big ego, if you think like that I have my own agenda, of course I have an agenda. I'm not going to sit here and hide from it. Yeah, I sell whole life now, but I got to tell you, for 6 years I created this content and could not sell whole life. I wasn't licensed. I was just creating this as a way to pass it forward and to help people. Do I have an agenda now? Yeah, I run an IMO. I'm helping whole life agents. I'm selling whole life insurance. I'm not going to hide from that. But that has nothing to do with my opinion about IUL. My opinion about IUL has been here forever. And there's a reason I left the business for a while, is because I was a director of business development. And when I learned that IUL wasn't what I thought I was selling, I had to get out. So, all right, somebody wrote here, my Transamerica IUL was the dumbest investment I ever made. I'm sorry about that. I have 20K and can't access it for another 7 years. It's been 8 and the return is almost non-existent, and I'm way under my cost of insurance. Yeah, so that's tough, man. So I see this happen all the time. The hard part with Transamerica is that they have a 15-year surrender schedule on a lot of their products. So you're 8 years in, you got 7 years to go. And honestly, chances are if you want us to review that, Blake, I can have the team look it over and kind of give you an idea as to what some of your options may or may not be with that policy. 8 years in, typically there's it doesn't make sense to replace a lot of policies like that. You have to look at, your insurance needs and what you have going on there. But if you wanted to have a conversation with somebody on the team, I could set you up with one of the guys on my team and kind of go from there. But yeah, that's tough. I see that all the time. That's one of the challenges. I think Transamerica is just, Transamerica is a pretty rough company, as far as that goes. World Financial Group, Transamerica have a partnership, so there's a lot of Transamerica policies that are sold. It's really, really sad because it's really just a trash product, in my opinion, from a lot of different angles. I've done some reviews and videos on that. If you want to get into the specifics of that, you can go check those videos out. I think they're in the IUL training playlist as well. But the bottom line is, like, anytime you get these 15-year surrender schedules, it's really rough. Now, another company that's coming to the top of my mind that has a 15-year surrender schedule is Mutual of Omaha. And that is the company predominantly that MPI, that Curtis Ray uses with MPI. And it's kind of tragic to me, when you take a strategy like MPI and then you take a product with a 15-year surrender schedule, and then you're leveraging the cash value and borrowing against it during the surrender period to basically re-put that money back into more insurance, assuming there's going to be positive arbitrage. In my opinion, that whole system is the biggest train wreck in the IUL space. Out of all of Index Universal Life sales mechanisms or schemes or strategies, whatever you want to call them, to me, the MPI strategy is the worst. And I don't know how many people here have heard of that or not, but it's an atrocity in my opinion. So, all right. So what does everybody think? I've been going now for like 45 minutes. I answered this question. I feel good. I apologize if I got a little fired up there a little bit, but I really get irritated and fired up when people are, I guess, positioning it as something that it's not. And they're like, I feel like this guy is trying to position it like I have my own agenda, when in fact he's got his own agenda, but like he just can't back it up in a way. Like he's just making these comments. If he's got more comments and anything, I mean, I feel like I've responded to the comments now, that it's pretty clear. I mean, he says he's read the Infinite Banking book twice, but yet he, still doesn't seem to understand how Infinite Banking works. That's apparent since he's stating why and how IUL can be used for Infinite Banking. So that's interesting. But the other things, if he's got any more comments, it would be interesting to see those. But I guess aside from that, let me see if I have any other comments that I wanted to address when I was here. Ironically, one of the comments that I had, I'll just read it. I copied a couple and sent them to myself in email just to go through them if I wanted to. But one of them says, I have a large amount to use and I'm interested in life insurance as a banking alternative using Transamerica. What is the best design, performing, guaranteed life insurance policy? I can get especially, I don't know what this means. It was, I think, a typo, but I can get especially in a down market like a crash. I totally expect the market crash soon. Help. Okay, so that's a pretty broken sentence. My guess is that just is, yeah, anyway. So here's the deal. Transamerica cannot be used for Infinite Banking at all. Should never be used for Infinite Banking at all. If you are looking, Transamerica is not a great company. To me, you are at risk for a lot of things if you go with a policy. Like I said, I've got another video that goes through that in much more detail. Go check it out. But what I will say is I agree that I think a market crash, I wouldn't call it a crash. I think a market correction is coming. I believe that correction is going to create a lot of opportunity. I think that having liquid, accessible capital during that time is going to be imperative to a lot of people's success. I think the people that are ready for this and are prepared and have access to liquid cash are going to be the winners in the deal. Trans amendment. Yep. I think the people that are ready for that and have the liquid cash are going to win. And I think there's going to be a lot more opportunity than we've ever seen for people in those situations. It's one of the reasons I like whole life insurance when done properly. One of the things that is really, really cool is the way that you can design a whole life policy to have over 90% liquidity beginning in year one. And you can start having it so beginning in year two, the policy is growing by more than you're contributing. You can't do that in an IUL and have full liquidity because of the surrender schedule of the IULs. And so when we're talking about, whether we're talking about long-term goals or short-term goals, whole life is going to have more liquidity, more guarantees, more stability, and then a long-term basis is going to have less risk. I think fundamentally speaking, am I injecting my opinion into this? Of course I am. But my opinion is based on a lot of education, a lot of history, a lot of experience. And so you just have to decide if you trust me and my opinion on that or not, and go from there. So Blake, if you want to do a review on your policy, just shoot me an email, Chris@Life180, and I'll set you up with somebody on my team, and I can connect you with them, and they can go through it. It may not make sense to flip it. We would call it a 1035 exchange, but you have to look at the cash value. What you have to do, okay, so anybody that's in that situation, you have to kind of look at your policy, where you are, what the net cash value is, what the surrender period is, and you gotta kind of look at how close you are to the end of that surrender period, and you gotta figure out, does it make sense, and is it worth the risk of paying this as the surrender charges start to diminish over time, based on how it's performed to this time? Because not only do you have the surrender charges you've paid, but my guess is that that policy has underperformed what you thought it would perform at during that 8-year period. So you got kind of a double whammy. You got the surrender charges and the fact that the policy has underperformed. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Now you have another 7 years. And during that 7 years, you have to judge whether you think continuing to pay in that, if it's going to continue to underperform, even as the surrender charges diminish, where's the risk reward in that for you, and does it make sense? Conversely, you can look at it and you can say, all right, the option is, and I'm not saying this is right for you, I'm just saying this is how you got to kind of think about it. You could 1035 exchange that into a properly designed whole life insurance policy if you did this. Now, if you did that, you have to then look at on a guaranteed basis, and this is what I look at. On a guaranteed basis, if you 1035 exchange that money and you put it into a policy and then you funded it at an equivalent amount and then you looked out 8 years, right? If you looked at 8 years and you have to look at the cash value in the whole life policy and you look at the guarantees and then you look at the somewhere around the non-guaranteed section of the IUL policy and you see how they compare against each other. And you have to, this is how I look at it. What's the upside? What's the downside? Can I live with the downside? And you have to look at those two comparisons and run each policy side by side against each other and say, all right, what kind of risks am I willing to take? How am I willing to do this for myself? Do I want to stick with it and take the risk in the IUL, or maybe there's a little less upside potential with the whole life, but if I know on a guaranteed basis I can get close and I'm just not comfortable with where I am, maybe that makes sense, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, but you have to, that's something that it's really a personal thing. I always kind of say it's the math and the emotion behind it all. We can all look at it on a spreadsheet and we can look at the math of it all and have our own opinions about the math. But make no mistake about it, a lot of this is very, very emotionally driven, right? Because make no mistake about it, everybody makes decisions emotionally and then we validate those decisions with logic. And the biggest issue that I have with most agents is that, they try to sell based on logic, and the logic a lot of times doesn't line up. It's just not factual. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the facts of IUL. But really when it comes to helping people, the beautiful part, when I'm speaking specifically about whole life now, the beautiful part about whole life is the different types of problems it can solve for people at different phases of life. And so we need to start really connecting with people about what are the challenges that they're having, what are the problems that they have in life, what are their goals, what are their objectives in life, and how can we help them, accomplish those goals. And it's not about the math, it's not about the spreadsheets, it's not about the infinite banking, it's about creating a system that can allow them to accomplish those goals with more predictability and putting them at the center of their own success. To me, that's what it's all about. Michael Magnan, hopefully I said that name right. Apologize if I didn't. What's the main difference between IUL and whole life? I'm still at a loss between these two. I've done a lot of videos on this. I would say the main difference between the two is just a function of risk. So whole life, I guess I'll do this. I'll go back to my board and I'll write this up. I will do the main difference between the two. All right, so I'll do IUL and then whole life. So whole life is the rules are put, the policyholder has control. The insurance company has control over here. You have annual renewable term, meaning can never pay up. And over here, the COI is more fixed and determined and can be paid up, which is a huge deal when we're talking about retirement and utilizing as an asset. Here, you're using a fixed dividend rate. So if you are, and there's a fixed, actually I wrote that wrong. So it's a fixed product, but it's not a fixed dividend rate. So you have a guarantee. I'm gonna write GT for guarantee plus a dividend rate. So when you, with whole life, when you have a dividend rate, ultimately what you're doing is you're talking about, you have the guarantee. Let's just say with section 7702, the guarantees are anywhere between 2 and 3.75%. Those are the guarantees. Now you'll see a lot of companies will have 5 to 5.75% dividend. So what does that mean? Every company is a little bit different. And what you'll notice is the higher the guarantee on the illustration, the lower that the current assumption category will be, because typically their dividends are a little lower, because the higher the guarantee, the more stress it puts on the general fund. And so that does impact how high their dividend can be. That's why a lot of these companies have chosen to go with the 2% guarantee so they can have a higher dividend, because it illustrates better. But once again, even with whole life, I think it's important to not just sell off the illustration, but we gotta educate our clients as to what the dividend rates mean, what the illustrations mean, how the illustrates are impacted by changing dividend rates and the difference between the guarantee and the dividend. So you could see here, for instance, if we had a 5% dividend, for instance, and a 2% guarantee, that means 2% is guaranteed and 3% will be paid out as the dividend, right? And so when we look at that, this is all just part of the way whole life works. And if you're working with a participating mutually held life insurance company, this dividend is paid out very similarly to policyholders, that the way that shareholders in a publicly traded company would be paid out. Whereas with Index Universal Life, let's just say that the general fund, because out of this, if the general fund is performing at 4%, they're able to do all this. This kind of pulls in the general funds at 4%, and this all gets paid out because they've got other capacities outside of the general fund that are profit centers that pass through like other lines of business. So remember, whole life policyholders, when you're a participating, you have a whole life policy with a participating mutual company, it means you're participating through a dividend in the profitability of the company. That's basically what that means. And so effectively, every company has other lines of business. They have term insurance, they have annuities, they have IUL, some of them, not all participating companies do, but a couple do have IUL. These are all profit centers that whole life policyholders are participating in through the form of a dividend, and that's the way it goes. Now with an IUL, let's go over here. Basically what they're doing is they're taking this 4%, and instead of crediting it to the policy and paying it back in the form of a dividend, they're basically taking that 4% the general fund does on the cash value, and they're creating an option budget with it. And they're putting it in an option strategy, and they're taking risk. And so, it's just a function of understanding that is what it is. And by the way, for this perspective, I have no problem with taking risk, with some of this money. I love indexed annuities. I think the strategy as a whole works. But once again, the guy that's saying I've been giving my opinion too much, in this, and I'm injecting my opinion into this, I would argue that once again, this is my opinion, but it's also like there's a lot of fact behind it, in the sense that if you look at the reason I like indexed annuities versus IULs is because annuities don't have mortality charges to them, and their indexes are lower performance. So you could take the same index like Allianz, Transamerica, all these companies, Symetra, they all have annuities and they all have IULs. And the index strategy is the same, but the annuity indexing is a lower rate, and they give a lower rate and they pay a lower income on them because they have to guarantee them, because they have no surrender periods before you have to wait to start annuitizing and taking money out of your policy or out of your annuity. So with IULs, they can inflate those numbers because they know they control your money, i.e. the insurance company's in control, whereas whole life you're in control. So they know that they can do that. And so they do this options budget in IULs with this 4% general fund. That creates an options budget. And then you have to kind of manage all that risk inside of the policy. And then when you add in the fact that you have annual renewable term and it's not fixed, right? When this goes down here and we think about that, and we think about the cost of insurance is not fixed, admin charges are not typically fixed. You look at the fact that there's market volatility. You look at the fact that there's loan rate volatility. And depending on where you are in life, by putting your money into an IUL, is there a little more upside? Potentially on paper, yes, there is. But in actuality, I have yet to see an IUL actually perform as sold and actually do and fulfill the promises that it gives people. And in fact, I would even be careful about saying that, because at the end of the day, IUL's promises, if you read the illustration, are not good. It's lacking promises, and it's very transparent about that if you just take the time to read the illustration, whereas whole life promises to be there for you if you just do your end of the bargain and pay the premium. So hopefully, does that answer your question about whole life? Hopefully. I know it was a little bit long-winded, but hopefully that answers it sufficiently. But all right, guys. Well, if I don't have any other questions, I think I'm gonna call it a day. Hopefully everybody found value in this. This one comment, like I said, I felt like I needed to respond to the comment string. I felt like doing it over video was going to be way more effective for me, because I would have ended up spending 2 hours writing a response to that. And now I just get to do it and hopefully answer other people's questions. And obviously this is great. I got to answer a couple other questions at the same time, which I always love to do. And that's it. So I'm going to give it a couple seconds here. If anybody doesn't have any more questions, if you do, chime in, and I'm happy to keep going. But otherwise, I'm going to call this. I'm going to give it like another 30 seconds, and I'm going to count down, and we'll call it a day. But thanks to everybody for being here. Once again, comment in the comment section below if anything comes up. If you think of anything, I'll do my best to engage with it. I'm going to try to do these videos and go live at least once or twice a week from here. I'm trying to figure out a schedule for it, but I'm just getting home, getting back to it, trying to rebuild my new schedule now that I'm back, now that my kids are starting school again. Summertime is ending and all that stuff. It's going to be really cool. We got a lot of really, really good things happening. Can't wait to kind of throw that out there. And so, yeah, that's it. All right, guys. Till next time, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. See ya.